Checking to see everything's going all right. Yeah. A couple different things set up here right now. Looks like the mic is working for my stream on YouTube, and looks like we're live on Instagram too. I set up one of my older phones up here to record my screen, so everyone on YouTube, you'll hear me addressing that group a little bit, just right now. Yeah, so this is my first sort of combined live where I'm doing Instagram on my own account, just filming the screen top down, and then you guys, if you're on YouTube, following Maxon / Pixelogic / ZBrush's page, you should be seeing me as well. So yeah, looks like we're good across the board. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to type them in the chat. As far as Instagram goes, I don't know if I can answer your questions so much because I have my other phone here, but I don't think I can access the same account and answer live questions at the same time. So if you jump on my live on IG, some questions, feel free to hop over to the YouTube channel of ZBrush. Just type in ZBrush Live, and you should be able to pop in your questions there. Yeah. So with that being said, I'm just gonna get my reference up here. So yeah, if anyone has any trouble hearing me, let me know. Also. Here we go. Dino reference. Anyone in chat, let me know where you're from. If you guys are in the U.S., out of the U.S., you're some of the fine ladies and gentlemen that I met at the ZBrush Summit like 2 weeks ago now. Week ago, 2 weeks ago. Man, time flies. Yeah, it was great to see everybody in person. Honestly, it was kind of a blur though too, and it went fast. I was running in and out a lot, so yeah. But yeah, it was really cool. For those who don't know, we had we meaning the ZBrush community and all the wonderful people at Pixelogic / Maxon, ZBrush guys and gals. They put on the summit again, which we haven't had since 2019. So it was a long time in coming. So it was really nice to see a lot of familiar faces again. Sorry, I'm just setting up some tunes for myself as well. Trying to get my reference set up here. So, what kind of worlds are we building? How you doing, William? We are building a dinosaur world in this case, if you want to call it a world. More like a character. So yeah, for those who don't know, there was this great short film that got legendary stop animation artist and visionary Phil Tippett, got him the job to do a full documentary that had all these incredible stop animation dinosaurs that looked very realistic, and that really inspired me as a kid. I was really just shocked by how real they looked, even though I knew, of course, they weren't real. I understood the general, uh, work that stop motion entailed. I was still blown away as a child. I just love this. I love this documentary that was hosted by Christopher Reeve, the late and great Christopher Reeve. For those who don't know, he was Superman my generation Superman. One of the best, I think. I love Henry Cavill though too. Anyway, Christopher Reeve hosted this great documentary, and Phil Tippett's work was just an absolute masterpiece. And so I'll slide this over. This is just a Google search for references, and this is the Dino I'm recreating. I always loved it. Yeah, so just kind of going through and looking up some shots quick. And there's a T-Rex in this short. Oh, prehistoric beast. You can look it up on YouTube and find it. Or you could type in like dinosaur, an exclamation point, and then just type in dinosaur cut only or something like that, and it'll have all just the dinosaur scenes from this documentary that are all just stop animation. They look amazing. Um, but yeah, so there's a T-Rex that encounters this monoclonius, and the setup is great. I mean, like the direction, I guess you could say, and the music, if it's very 80s vibe, but it's still really cool, I think. It just really gives a really dark, mature, kind of very eerie feel to the whole thing. As this monoclonius kind of goes into the forest just to hunt around for food, and he or she meets their end, sadly, at the jaws of a T-Rex. And the music and the tonality and the setup and everything, it's very much like something foreboding's coming. So it is foreboding, I should say. So it's pretty cool piece of art, honestly. It's just a beautiful piece of work. And that got him the documentary work. This one's short, and then that documentary work got him the job on Jurassic, which then sadly became a point of contention between him and Steve Spaz Williams and ILM when that work kind of took over, and Phil had to be repositioned in the end into still an animator and an assistant on the whole show, but stop animation got canned quickly at that point. But anyhow, he and Steve Williams are both personal acquaintances of mine, heroes of mine. Really been very blessed to have met both of them in person. Bill a couple times in person, and Steve once recently at South by Southwest. And yeah, I've been really lucky to have some nice conversations with him, and I admire the guy. I admire them both deeply. Really, just am thankful for their work and their influence in my life. So yeah. Oh, okay, gotcha. William, thanks for letting me know. As far as the title is wrong, I'll sure to let me text Kyle really quick. Sorry for anyone on IG who's just watching the screen. They're like, what are we doing? You guys can hear me, I'm sure. Let's check on the phone. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so this is like for those who've never watched a live of me before, for those of you on YouTube or on Instagram, this might be a whole new world for you guys, but this is the workflow in general of like how we create characters for movies. This is going to be specifically created for 3D print, but the still sculptural work we do is very much the same, and we create these really detailed characters that then have other processes done to them so that they can then be animated and rendered and composited into a shot in a movie. So I'm going to be doing a lot of that same kind of work on this guy as we move forward. So let me just text Kyle quickly, let him know, fortunately, that got the wrong title in there. All right, that's done. And yeah, all right, off we go. Sorry for the preamble. Yeah, again, any questions, feel free to ask. If you're on IG, please hop over to the YouTube page, not my YouTube page, but ZBrush's YouTube page. And there we can answer any questions you got. Trying to look for a little bit higher res images so I can get some clean looks at this guy's face. So that suffice, I guess. Sorry, I should have had all this ready, but it's been a really just hectic week. It's a lot of work lately, which is just always nice, but so it's like the one extreme or the other. At times it's like too much work or no work, and like a freelancer right now. Especially with the strike coming in, it's like, man, the strikes that have been lasting a while doesn't really help anybody. So yeah, for those who don't know, sculpting the computer is similar to what it would be like if you were sculpting in zero gravity, I guess is the best way to describe it. So, meaning that you don't have to contend with gravity. That's one of the cool advantages of it. It's like as if everything were perfectly suspended in zero gravity, which allows you to kind of get really crazy amounts of detail and really zoom in and get almost infinitesimal detail that would be pretty much at a certain point impossible by the human hand. If you were sculpting in clay, even if you were sculpting on rock, still certain things you can do in a computer that would just you could never do in reality, really, or be extremely hard to do in reality. So that's one of the cool things with sculpting digitally is that we can 3D print things that are insane, great things that are just really beyond what you could do with human hands in general. Of course, yeah, there's those exceptions. There are those dudes who can sculpt on a grain of rice. I've seen that. I've seen it in person, and that's bananas. But that's the exception, not the rule. I would say most sculptors are not trying to get to that level of crazy detail. It's much more realistic to be looking to try that out with computer. So anyway, here we are practicing sculpting a monoclonius. It's the name of this dinosaur. We're doing basically a tribute to one of my personal heroes' work, Phil Tippett. And people may not know his name, but you definitely know his work if you've ever seen. Uh, Man, if you've ever seen The Empire Strikes Back, a lot of Star Wars work, the Tauntaun. There's a lot of creatures out there that he did. Um, I gotta change it. I'm listening to music and they've got the DJ talking way too much, and it's like it's hard for me to talk when I'm hearing someone else talk in my ear. Some tunes. Do I have reference images? Yeah, I do. I'm looking at some right now. Show you. This is one I'm looking at the moment. This is one I'm checking out. It's from the short. I actually think this shot actually isn't in the short, but I think this is one that he took. This shot, I mean, this specific shot, this angle isn't in the short, but this is they just took the camera and rotated it, like moved a hand camera around the model that was being filmed for the stop animation and took a picture from a different angle. But yeah, it's beautiful because yeah, the work. What's impressive to me about stop motion in general, like this, is that a still frame, it looks real. I mean, it's the real objects, obviously, but I mean, you can almost, there's certain things that kind of give away scale, but you could still look at it from a distance and think, oh, that was a real photograph. Except obviously, dinosaurs are extinct, so you could easily, be forgiven for thinking that it was a photograph of a real statue in the forest or something. So yeah. So anyway. you know, and to a degree, a lot of the skin textures are all speculation. I mean, we have some impressions of some dinosaurs, but we don't have a ton. So there's a lot of stuff that's just speculation, best guess. But what we do have is a lot of large dinosaurs skin impressions. We have big patches of them, and even we have some of a ceratopsian. I think we have some of Triceratops. It's all pebbly, rough skin, like scaly, pebbly, like thicker and rougher than a rhino's, but similar-ish to kind of like a rhino's. It's like if you mixed a rhino with a reptile a bit. That's kind of how the skin looks. Um, so not, you know, like there's this over, in my opinion, I'm kind of annoyed by the oversaturation of feathers on dinosaurs. Like just that's how people go with everything, I guess. They get too excessive and they just go total like pendulum swings one way or the other way. And it's just like, oh, let's cover them in feathers and spikes and all this. And it's like, dude, like we have some impressions. Like we do have an idea of what it probably looked like at least what the skin texture was like. There's even one that they got recently that they were able to use a micron, I think it was not just a microscope, but something else. They used some technology that allowed them to determine the range of colors that were in the skin, and it was mostly like brown, oranges, and blacks. It was really cool. You can look it up. It's like dinosaur skin color found. Just Google like that, like first dinosaur skin color ever discovered or something like that. And it's just like um, parrot, like beaked, kind of like this, but like it was like a semi biped because I think it could walk on all fours too, but like a hadrosaur kind of, but really small with like some spikes coming out the side of its face. Really unique, kind of funky looking dinosaur. There's a couple other species like that I've seen, so it kind of has its own sort of genus or like category. But anyway, they found the colors of it. They figured out pretty sure like what the colors were, and also its skin, and it was not covered in feathers. So again, and it seems in general too, like larger the animals get, the less fur or feathers usually they have after a certain point. Um, so yeah, so unless we found like actual feather impressions, like we did for Archaeopteryx or I think a few other dinosaurs, the whole thing, like I'm a nerd. I got into this when I was younger. So like the reason why they were saying that some raptor-like dinosaurs, like Deinonychus and Utah raptor and all these others, had feathers, is because of what they call ulnar notches. So the radius in your ulnar notches of your ulna. So that's the bone that the radius rotates around in your arm. So on the ulna of this one dinosaur, they found what could be notches that would be the routine location for the shafts that would be for flight feathers. Except nature doesn't usually have things that don't make sense on them necessarily, and meaning especially flight feathers are very specific feathers, which obviously are used for flying. So if an animal cannot fly, they most likely won't have flight feathers. They will have probably more than likely spines, like spiky. If you look at the cassowary, it doesn't have flight feathers. It has feathers, but the cassowary is a very violent, angry land bird that's small, a little bit smaller than a ostrich, but more deadly. I think it's killed more people than an ostrich, and it has spines, like really long, like giant quills, like a giant porcupine. Like it has 6 or 7 of them, I think, coming off of its arm. Except it doesn't have fingers either. It's just like a little chicken wing, kind of. But I mean, if you were to like be on the wrong end of that, and it were to flap its arms or back up into you, it would stab you with those spines. And I'm sure it would either penetrate or really not feel good, if not actually impale you. So I'm like, I don't know. I've been. I should probably do this myself sometime. Is just add in some of the details that I think would be more scientifically accurate. It feels like people get on these hype trains or these hope trains, like they really want something to be true, so they sort of force it into the art of these animals, and it really kind of misleads people, I think, honestly, into and I think it's also just a desire to really kind of push this angle of like, well, they've all evolved from one thing to another, and we got the birds coming out of these things, and it's like, dude, they're all separate species. There's distant cousins, and there's definitely an adaptation, but I don't buy that whole species have changed into whole other species, personally. So I have a problem with that. But we see adaptation all the time. We see a deep adaptation. We see dogs, come from wolves, but they didn't evolve whole new species. They were just adapting and morphing of different attributes over a long period of time. But they're still dogs. They're still, canines. So I'd say like birds, you could say birds are non-avian dinosaurs, but I think they're also just another species that are very distantly related in some cousin-like way, you know. I mean, but they're not like from the same one ancestor. I really think they're separate animals. Um, but anyway, just my personal opinion. Obviously, the opinions voiced on this stream are of the individuals and not the companies. Disclaimer. Anyway, what's chat saying? Stop motion when done by pro looks amazing. Yep. Yeah, totally. 100%. Is it Dynamesh in the moment? No. What version of ZBrush is this? This is actually, I think this is 2023, 2022. Actually have to upgrade to 2023. I have a code, I just haven't used it because I'm an idiot and because I've just been so busy and comfortable with this. But I know I should, because there are advantages that I've seen with, especially with ZRemesher. Actually, there's some nice perks. Like in particular, I think you can keep polypaint now when you do ZRemesh, which is great. And that can be very helpful, especially when you're trying to clean up something. I've bounced between the retopology in Maya now, the new retopology in Maya, and the ZRemesher, and to quantify some things when I had a project that had a lot of triangulated elements to it. And it was really helpful to be able to retopologize something with quads in Maya and then do a transfer attributes operation, which allows you to transfer the UVs. So if you duplicated a mesh, let's say, and the original mesh had triangles, but you want to keep the UVs, but you need it to be quads so you can subdivide it without triangulation looking bad. In other words, like here's an example. This is all quadratified, obviously. This is the low cage mesh. Everything's quads, 4-pointed polygons. Then you subdivide up, and you have way more. You know, every four-sided polygons multiplied times 4, and here you go. And that just allows for everything to flow and deform properly, especially when you're doing animation, or even if you just want to move certain things. Let's say we wanted to move like this leg. This is an example for those who are new. If this was triangulated, you wouldn't have these clean edge loops, which are just the loops that go the whole way around. This example of like a leg. It's basically like a tube, basically, right? You just want to mask this area. Let me get to a lower resolution. And let's say we want its legs to be moving forward. So I invert the mask, switch over to this guy, and whoop. And so you can see we got some nice deformation here, but it looks natural, right? That's the way that the edge loops flow around the arm, which be the natural way your elbow would flex, and you'd have a pinching of the skin and the muscle and tissue in this kind of naturalistic way. And if you were to, just go ahead and say, all right, there to be a bunch of wrinkles and folds in these arms, you could easily just start adding them in here, and it would all flow very nicely. But if there were triangles here instead of quads, this would look terrible because you'd have a lot of this jagged points going out in different ways, and it's like going against the grain. I mean, once you subdivide to a certain level, then yeah, it almost becomes a non-issue when you're at like 100 million polys. But here we're at 4 million, and it's which is not a lot in general, and you're getting some really nice results already from just that. So just an example of why four-sided polygons are way more important and useful than triangles. But then someone who's maybe still a novice but understands that a lot of games have triangulated meshes, or even talk about how many triangles are in a scene or in an object, that's usually because when you import a model that is quads into a game engine like Unreal or others, often they will be triangulated, but they'll take a square, they'll take a four-sided polygon and slice it directly in half. So you have a diagonal cut from one vertex to the other, and so then it creates two triangles, which is why then they'll say like, oh, there's so many triangles in this thing. Well, it really was quads originally, so it was sculpted properly and well, but then it was converted to triangles by simply doing a sort of division algorithm that is beyond me. That gives them the results that they like. So anyway, Do I like sculpting with the perspective mode on? No, not really. I have it off right now. Now it's on. So again, for anyone new, perspective is just what you think it is. It's having an actual camera focal perspective. I actually have this at 100, usually like 50. So here you go. You can kind of see that other foot, for instance. And you can kind of see the other horn there a little bit. I bring them up like this, and I turn off perspective. Now we're in what's called orthogonal view. So for those who don't know, orthogonal is when you take away all perspective, suddenly now everything is looked at from an impossible way, really. It's that it only has one. So like with perspective, it's like it's warping an object as the way you would see through any lens or your eyes. But with orthogonal, it's looking at it strictly from like a more math vertice view. I don't know what the proper phrasing would be essentially, but you're taking away all perspective. So all curvature of the object that would be perceived from a naturalistic point of view is taken away, which is great for when you want to be extremely clean, especially hard surfaces or objects that you need to have perfectly aligned. We were working with buildings, cars, vehicles, armor, things that have very 90-degree angles or just need to have perfect alignment in certain areas. Orthogonal view is a great way to operate. It's almost necessitated, really, in those kind of operations. But also, often I like to work outside of perspective just so I know, in general, like how things are going to look and how when I know I'm working symmetrically, which in this case I am. So obviously, you see that other dot on the other side here. We got symmetry on at the same time. And then I'll eventually at one point I'll go, toward the end I'll go into asymmetry. I'll just turn off symmetry, and then I'll just add subtle details on each side to give it its own unique kind of look, because nothing in life that's natural really is perfectly symmetrical. Like obviously the more symmetrical someone's face is, for instance, as I'm sure everyone's heard, the more attractive generally they are. But no one's face is perfectly symmetrical. No animal is. Everything has subtle asymmetry. So yeah. But yeah, no, I often tend to work orthogonally a lot, but sometimes I'll switch on perspective. But I find still that when I have perspective on for too long, it can kind of, no pun intended, it can kind of warp my perspective on the way things are looking and how they're turning out. So I often like to work orthogonally, unless it's something so specific like a likeness, which I don't have a scan for, or even if I do have a scan, but I'm trying to add really subtle but specific esoteric details to someone's face. Like a famous actor, I'll probably turn on perspective, but figure out what the focal length was of the photograph that was taken of them so that I can get the right angle and adjust for it, but also then have the virtual camera in ZBrush mimic the real camera that was, so like you're estimating, was it a 50 millimeter? Was it a 100 millimeter? 200 millimeters? The longer the millimeter of lens, the more compression happens in the face, the more it gets closer to orthogonal view, actually. So the more you compress an image, the longer the focal length of a lens is usually, and thus in turn that means that you're getting much, much closer to what orthogonal view would be. So yeah. But the human eye is, people always kind of go back and forth with this. It's between 35 millimeter and 50 millimeter, general kind of approximation of how we see the world. So if you were to use a camera to mimic what the human eye sees, generally it's going to be somewhere around 35 to 50 millimeter, and make someone's face look pleasant as opposed to fish-eyed and big and round. Like right now, my face looks more rounded in this camera than it would on a 50 millimeter lens, like DSLR, because webcams kind of suck. I don't know why they haven't made I don't know why you either have to connect your DSLR to the computer or just use a crappy I always say it relatively, but I mean, yeah, you got to use like a kind of a crappy webcam, which it's not very flattering to the face. I mean, unless you have an incredibly attractive photogenic face, which I don't. So I think it can tend to warp people's faces, obviously, a bit more. Even with podcasters, you look at some rather popular, famous podcasters, when they're working from their own computer in their one studio, you'll see that their faces look pretty round, but you don't really think about it until you see them from another context. You see them on a different podcast or a different version of their podcast or a newer version, and they have cameras set up like formal DSLR with nice lenses, like probably 50 to 100 millimeter lenses set far back so that the zoom in, doesn't get in too close to the face, and their faces look way different. And yeah, it's usually just a bit more flattering, and their faces look more correct. Actually, it's how true to life, I guess, is how you'd see them. So anyway, so yeah, this is my little a little spiel on focal lengths and perspective, and I don't really use a lot of perspective when I'm sculpting. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out. Look, so I'm futzing around with this area of the face because this area right here is a little confusing. Like it's just like what exactly is happening right in here? Like I see this trail of kind of rough, kind of keratinous, like cartilage kind of like rough, bony kind of structures here. That's like this line that comes from around the crest all the way up this way. So it's this really beautiful kind of, you know, rough sort of mountainous range, you could say, along the face of the animal. So I'm just trying to figure out. I got to look at some other photos, I think, here and see like what else that's different. Yeah, like just trying to get some other views here of like what exactly is happening. But yeah, I think it's kind of like, for lack of a better term, like a mountainous range. It kind of is like two areas kind of seen up together and forming a kind of a ridge of face. What else are you guys asking? I never know which part of the model should be quad and which part should be triangles for the game. Just do everything in quads and then let the game engine triangulate what you need to. I would say. I mean, unless you're really on a tight budget polygon wise, like if your engine can't handle really heavy polygon counts, then yeah. I mean, well, and a good rule of thumb too is if something's going to deform or animate, if it's going to animate, that's actually the wrong terminology, I guess, because if it's going to animate but it's never going to deform, it's fine if it's all triangles, because that means you can reduce the amount of polygons it takes to define the shape, generally. But if it's going to deform or break or bend it anyway, you should have quads, and they should be quads that flow in the way that would complement the deformation you expect to happen of that object, generally. But if it's not going to, if it's like, environment art, if it's like an asset that's a building or even a stationary thing that's like a bush, or a tree, if there's not much sway, like if the trees is going to gently rock a little bit, you're going to have the branches kind of sway a little bit, you could easily have that be triangles. So it's sort of about it's a rule of thumb, right? It's like an order of operations. It's just a way to know, well, if your goal is X, then that dictates what Y and Z need to be. Right? It's just kind of a basic kind of like, knowing what your intention is for something will help you define better, how you should model it, how it should be worked with. At what point do you use the UVs? Or what point do you do the UVs? Sorry, after remedying or after retopology, before you start detailing? Remeshing. Okay. Well, in this case, I'm not going to be doing UVs. I don't think, because it's going to be 3D printed. But if I were to, I mean, I could do them now. I would just have to step back because I'm already subdivided up. What I would do is I would just duplicate this, which you would do in ZBrush in this case. Let's say if you want to make UVs, I'll just give you a quick tutorial here. So let's go to UV master here. Let's say, so we want to, in this case, instead of duplicating the model and then working on that, you kind of have a system set up for you already. So if you go to Z plugin, UV master, and then you go to work on clone, it's this button right here. Click on that. Now it duplicates your model for you, and it gives you the lowest resolution version of it that it can. And so, just as an example, I don't think these edge loops, yeah, so my edge loops aren't ideal for the best UVs, but then again, a few times they are, because you often have to work with what you got. Sometimes edge flows have this weird choice of where they wrap around. Oh, gotta do an autosave. Hang on. 2 seconds. Do we got anything in the chat? Okay, bro. Okay, anyway. Select this out. So now we got this continuous loop that I got right there. So that lets me isolate the legs, for instance, here. So then I would just do auto group. So now both of these legs have separate polygroups. And then what I would do is I would hold Control Shift, tap this, then hit W. Now we've got that group together. Go over here and something similar. I think it's something like that. So did it complete the whole way around? Whoops. All right, there we go. Well, that's the thing is I wanted to have this kind of come around. So again, not perfect UVs by any means, but this is just a quick example how I would up. Yeah. One. That's what I'm trying to go for. Yeah. Like that's again not ideal because of topology. It's like it's yeah. When you talk about UVs, its topology is not the greatest for that. But again, simple thing, auto group. Oops. You don't want to hide the ones you want to keep as they are. Auto group. Boom. Those. That. So there, damn, now we got the legs separated. Again, yeah, not the cleanest UVs here. I cleaned it up more, but anyway. So then you go from this and you say, okay, I'm happy with that, just as an example. Now you go back to, we want to send it back. So we need to copy UVs, right? And then we go back to our Dino here. And now with the low sub D, back into UV master and say paste UVs. Bam. Now how do we know they're there? Well, actually, sorry, we didn't create UVs. Sorry, we created polygroups. Derp. So now we want to do, sorry, here. So we want to do polygroups, unwrap, symmetry. So now it's looking at polygroups. All right, so now we can check those. Sorry. So after that, then you come here to flatten, flattens them out, and it lays it out there. So now you see it's sort of like a bearskin rug. I'm assuming that's the head. This is the body. That looks a little weird because it's not symmetrical. But all these other parts, you know, legs, it's probably like the neck or the chest area kind of, and I'm not sure where that is. But and we can unflatten that. If we wanted to see where things are located, we can go to UV map, bring the bump down, and then go to morph UV. And now you can see where things come apart. And if you want to see it better, you can say, all right, I want a polygroup with the UVs. So you come into polygroups, go to auto group with UVs, bam. Now you get every single UV patch with its own color, its own polygroup. Right, I was right about that. And now you can see where all the pieces are. And then this can let you refine it more then. From here, you can go ahead and just say, all right, I need to change up some of these patches. So, like, I'm not happy with the way this thing is broken up. Let's say I wanted this to be all part of the head and neck, let's say, instead of two separate parts. So just come around here, break it up like this. Okay. Now we want to hide, which is square, so I can just tap on stuff. Easier to hide bits I don't want. Oh, actually, those. So there. So that's probably what I'd like the head. Well, in the back of the neck here, I think I'd want that. So I go back to the lasso. There we go. So now the head's a bit more of a clean capitation. So now we say, boom, polygroup that. The rest, I think, are okay. I kind of want to have these two be their own thing. So bond that. Now, their own group. So now we got the polygroups in their nice order. Now let's do the tail as well. Group those. All right, so there. Now I think that's a nice amount of polygroups and how it's ordered. So now I would go back to master and say symmetry, polygroups, unwrap. Let it find those islands, break them up. Hopefully it did a nicer job this time. And yep, kept them. I want to come to morph, see what they look like. Tail, the head. Weird, how's it breaking up the, oh, I see, okay, so it's taking that area and making a slice there. All right, that's all right. So yeah, these aren't bad. I would say these are pretty good, actually, overall. Looking at the rear end here, that's one rear leg. I think that's the other rear leg. So turn off the lines, just keep the color on. It lets you see where things are. So yeah, anyway, so that's where, you know, if you really, this is all an example to show you too that you can create UVs later if you need to or if you want to. And I probably should have actually done that break more along the line of where the tummy kind of comes in intersection with the rear leg. But anyway, it's just an example of UVs. Now we come back here to the original model, paste UVs, and then say group with UVs. There you go. So now our subdivided model has the UVs that you'd like, general. So, sorry, long answer for one question, but it shows you some quick techniques you can use to create UVs. And there are advantages to having UVs versus not too, even for a 3D printing model. It gives you a chance to isolate certain areas or do certain operations with like noise or other things that would allow you to lean on the UVs for creating certain shapes, textures, or even painting it if you wanted to go into Substance Painter. What else have we got in the chat? How did I get this clean topology? Mr. Barros, that would be Manuel. You're welcome. The clean topology was created from originally creating. I think you can go back and watch one of my first streams on this guy. Was just creating a Dynameshed version of this. I think I used I used Shane Olson's Ceratopsian model, which was where was it? Projects. Where's the ZZoo at? Show you where I got it. If you have ZBrush, you have it. So here's ZZoo, and the ZZoo has dinosaurs actually. Either toward the end, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a while. I don't hop in here a lot, but all right. So there's a T-Rex. Where's the Triceratops? Okay, so here we go. This is Z-Sphere Ceratopsian, so it's like a Triceratops dinosaur. But that's what I used, I think, as a base, and then I Z-remeshed that after I Dynameshed it, and then I got to this point. Once I Z-remeshed it, then I sculpted a bit more, and then I Z-remeshed again, I think, until I got some nice clean topo here. And I might have even used some guides to get some stuff like the edge loops around the eyes and whatnot. And then from there, of course, it's just subdividing. So There you go. You know, ZBrush gives you a lot of these tools to work with. You just have to know where to source them from. So I'm going to try not to be too much of a stickler for trying to get every single detail right in this thing. I think I can get some more of that on my own time. I don't want to bore you guys with too much just like noodling around, because that's, I think, my personal hang up with things at times, is I can just tend to noodle a bit too much and be really detail oriented, and I don't know that that's really I don't know, was the best thing really. Just when to move. I mean, it's different when I'm working on a non-personal project. I just want to get done with it as fast as possible usually, because generally the work that I wind up doing for clients is not work that I'm that excited about, unfortunately. Um, Sometimes it is, but most of the time it's just work. So whatever the client wants, the client gets. You know, if I get a little creative freedom in there, cool. But generally, I try not to take too much creative freedom in areas where I'm even given some, because a lot of times my creative choices may not be what they like or want. I mean, they might like it or appreciate it, but they might already have like another vision in mind. So I don't want to. I've learned from past experiences, like it's really not worth your time and trouble to go too far into the creative areas, um, when working for someone who already gave you like a briefing, a prompt, you know, or even a model to work with already. Unless they really just don't care either, and they just want you to go ham and just create something that's just beautiful and unique, which is, it happens. Um, but generally, when it comes to client work, unless it's going to be a dinosaur, a Jurassic dinosaur, or specifically from the first film, ideally, or an animal of some kind. I love animals. I love nature. If anyone follows me on Instagram, you know how much I love animals and how much I just post. My stories are 99% animals and like, or maybe like 80% animals and 20% politics. Sorry, not sorry. I think too many people are just afraid to say what they think, and that's why we're in the state we are now. I think people need to learn how to agree to disagree, or just be civil about their disagreements and not be insane about their emotions. Um, but that aside, I love animals a lot, and so I love nature. Um, I would probably even say I like hiking if I didn't live in California, because I should say, well, LA County, because hiking in LA County is not really hiking. I don't know, running canyon's kind of a joke to me. I mean, sure, you can get a workout on it, whatever, but I miss the trails and the beauty of the forests in Pennsylvania. And I know we got Lake Tahoe here, and we got like, you know, yeah, Yellowstone. We got to go. I got to go to places where we actually have like more of nature and more of the like the great redwoods and whatever. But I really not with my dog as he is right now. He's pretty laid up, so can't go far for very long unless I get a dog sitter, which I'm probably gonna do here in the near future because I need a break. I need to get away from the house for a bit. So I'm probably gonna have someone come and take care of him and do all that sometime here in the near future. But that's a hassle because he's a handful right now. He's For those who have followed me for a while, you know I have a corgi, and now he's 15 and a half, and he is paraplegic. He cannot walk. His rear legs have given out, I think, from a spinal issue. And so his life is much more challenging, and thus, in turn, my life is much more challenging. And being honest, it's been really rough the last year and a half. Um, pretty depressing and pretty challenging emotionally, psychologically. Um, so yeah, that's it's not fun. Life, I know. It's what happens when you love an animal and they start growing older. But yeah, it's hard for me to think of actually putting him down unless it was mercy. I would never keep an animal alive if they're suffering, of course. But I think he's, I wouldn't say he's suffering all the time necessarily at all. I think he's uncomfortable at times for sure. And I do my best to make him comfortable. He's on some pain meds now and then. He's also on some anti-anxiety meds, which a nurse friend of mine recommended, and they've been great. They've helped us sleep. There have been a lot of nights. He had surgery too. He had 23 of his teeth removed. So that was a lot, and that was pretty scary. But after all that went through, um, it was hard for us to get sleep, man. It was hard for me to get sleep because you'd be waking up a lot and whining, and I think some of it was stress and some of it was just, I don't know, combination of things. Anyway, long story short, just going off about my dog. We found sort of a happy medium now, so I'm just trying to keep finding more of that sweet spot to operate in life and taking care of him and keeping him as healthy and happy as I can for the time I have him. But it's not easy, especially when it's like, I live just with my dog. I don't have roommates. I don't have a wife or a girlfriend. So this is my main, this is my main buddy. So yeah, it'd be pretty rough. But that's the journey of life, right? We all got our challenges and our hardships. It always be roses and roses and cherries, much as we want it to be. Life isn't a fairy tale. Anyway, sorry, getting dark. Using subdivision right now. Yep, 100%. If you look down here, you can see my subdivision levels at 4. Take it one more up, we're at 5. That puts it up at 4 million, 4.5. So I bring it down 1 just because I don't need that much resolution right now, just to get these sort of semi-larger shapes. So I'm still just kind of looking at this reference image from the side view now. I'm trying to get this, keratinous, I guess would be the right term. It's like keratin, like stuff that makes your nails, your hair, the areas, I guess it's sort of like this, like cartilaginous sort of, is that the right word? Cartilaginous, cartilage-like kind of growths that happen here in the face that Phil gave this creature. Doing on the so on YouTube you can't see it. You probably see this white cable, but that's going into an iPhone that's on a arm here that's looking down on the screen. So I'm just taking a peek up onto the live of Instagram. So for anyone on Instagram who's just joined or has been around for a little bit, or maybe we'll see this later, I didn't even think to screen record this, so I don't know if it's going to save the live or not, but probably won't. But this is a program called ZBrush, for those who don't know, one that I use daily for both my job and personal projects, and it's a digital sculpting tool software. It's pretty fantastic. This has been my bread and butter for the better part of a decade, over a decade. This is the program I use day in and day out to allow me to make a living. And it's pretty awesome to say that. I moved from rural Pennsylvania, living among the Amish, not literally in their community, but I mean, I saw a horse and buggy pretty much every day of my life growing up in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And in the suburbs, just outside of farmland. If I ran outside of my suburban development, there were rolling hills with cows and lots of corn, giant silos. Beautiful, it's a beautiful looking area, but zero kind of tech like this, work like this in that area. And Philly wasn't exactly my idea of place I'd want to live, so. And Philly didn't have a lot of this work either. I mean, they had some advertising firms, I think, but anyway, I wanted to work in movies. I wanted to make my own movies. So LA was the place to be. LA County. So thankful I never moved into central LA at all. I would never really want to live downtown LA. As much as I am in and around and have always been in and around big cities, so to speak, like I live always on the periphery. I always lived around them, not in them. Thought I wanted to live in New York for a while when I was younger, and I think it would still be cool to live there for a little bit. I mean, right now it's pretty rough with all that's going on over there, but I mean, a little rougher anyway. But yeah, no, I love New York. I grew up 2 hour train ride away from there, so I'd go up fairly often as I got older, and love visiting it. But I think I'd probably only enjoy still living there for a short amount of time, which is probably in the end just really visiting, visiting for like a month or two at the most. Because you're just on top of so many people. You know, you're around so many people all the time. And aside from Central Park and a few other parks like Washington Square Park, which I love those parks, Union Square, Union Station, Union Square, getting Philly and New York confused with the names. Anyway, aside from some of those key places, you're always around concrete and buildings and people, and or going indoors, like just going from one building to another building, you know. And so I kind of miss the openness of where I grew up, and so now I live in a suburban area, not too far from the beach, and I do appreciate that kind of life. I do appreciate that being on the periphery of larger cities, but not in them necessarily. So I think that's probably where my future may be, or maybe I'll move out into the boonies somewhere and enjoy the rest of my life that way in the future. Who knows? But I do love living near the ocean. I love nature, like I said. So being close to the water, being close to the ocean, I think has been great overall. Yeah. So we'll see. Let's see what the future holds. Doing a very manual process here, by the way. This is not, there are tools that we could do, just as an example, even with just the most simple things here. Like I'll just show you it now with the clay buildup brush. We go to the stroke menu, we come over here, lazy mouse, and right now it's at 0.01 lazy step, right? So if you increase that, say let's take it to like, I don't know, let's go to 2.5. Probably not seeing much there because it's slow powered. So let me set 20. Let's go up to like almost 60 here. Now you can see what it's doing. This could be great for this kind of thing. Like you just want sort of randomness, sort of, you know, but it's following my path of where I'm drawing, but it's delaying it by a certain percentage. So now it's like tick 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 instead of like a consistent flow of the material, so to speak. It's outputting it in a consistent rhythm based upon the distance that my cursor moves. So it's great for like what I just did here. Like it helps you create some sort of randomish texture, but you're still controlling it. So that's helpful. So if I wanted to apply that to like this area, I would tighten it up a bit more and increase the strength of the intensity, the Z intensity. So I'd probably put this at like, I don't know, let's say 1. Or no, maybe actually let's try like 0.7. Then I crank this up to like 70. So now I could just come along here. I want it bigger. And yeah, 0.7 is even too much in the sense that it's very together still. So we go back to like 1.5. And it's a little too far apart. So if I wanted to replicate that, let's go to 1, I guess. Let's try 1. Still 2 together, actually. Too close, and they're repeating. So go, okay. Yeah, that's about it. Like if I go up a little bit higher subdivision, so it's not so blocky. It's kind of it. You know, you got to finagle it. But anyway, that's just an example. Back down to 0.5. But yeah, so there's ways if you wanted to create scales, bumps, or consistent patterns of some kind. That's an easy way to do it very quickly and simply. What else we got in chat? Sorry about my dog. Thanks, man. Yeah, it's an easy situation at all. Sucks, honestly. Um, not using alpha mask for the skin texture. Nah, I might use it for like really micro textures, like for the really fine, like if you want to give scales and scales, and like give a texture to the skin at the very final element where it's like almost infinitesimal. It's like you just see kind of noise. I might do it at that level, but I've learned again from just experience that if you want to create something that's close to, if you're either replicating something or like in this case, I'm trying to do a faithful homage to Phil Tippett's work. Everything is specific. They didn't take a stamp necessarily and just stamp everywhere. Because if you look at like, this is a great example. If you look at the skin here, you don't see any consistent repeated pattern that is distinguishable. Meaning everything kind of looks. It has a certain, of course, there's parameters to the way it looks, but to contain a certain texture overall. But it's not like you took a stamp and just stamped the same thing repeatedly. Because that looks really bad. That's also a very junior, novice, like just learning mistake, I guess you could say, or technique that people will use when they're new and they don't really know any better. But generally, unless the design calls for perfect repeating patterns, you don't want to use alpha stamps unless you can really confuse them amongst themselves visually so that you can't tell you're using the same stamp repeatedly. But invariably, our brains are just designed to be pattern recognition machines. That's one of the advantages of the human mind, is that we pick up on patterns very quickly. So visually, especially. So using alphas on, especially ZBrush alphas, unless unless you made your own and they're unique or they're very noisy, you can really rotate them and manipulate them in a way that breaks up the repeating pattern. I wouldn't advise using alpha maps much for anything that would be very noticeable. Again, subtle things, small. Hang on a second. The pup needs help. I'll be right back. He's trying to adjust himself. All right. Sorry about that. Yeah. Gonna adjust himself to the point where I think he just needs to be in another bed for a little bit. So yeah. Yeah, if you're using spray alpha, like exactly, like it'll rotate things automatically to some degree, so it helps mask, unintended, helps mask your usage of it. Where am I gonna texture this? Well, I'm not. This is not gonna be for rendering. This is gonna be for 3D printing. So again, I'm not gonna. I could take it into Substance. I don't know, but I don't. If I'm gonna render anything, it'll be a render of the 3D print ready model, which I could still poly paint it in here. But I don't really plan on rendering it for CG rendering or animation. I'm gonna be printing it. Another question: do you study the anatomy of everything you sculpt, or just go off reference? It's a mixture. It depends on what it is. Depends if I'm really interested in the anatomy or need it. A lot of times there's so much good reference for whatever you're sculpting, whether it's any animal, unless you're looking to sculpt an écorché, like the muscles, you're showing the muscles. There's a personal project I'm working on which uses muscles, exposed muscles. It's artificial muscles, but based on real animal anatomy, combining it. So that I'm looking up actual like medical documentation, dissection, getting deep into the weeds, like super nerdy stuff. which would look just like a pain or a headache to most people, but the end result, it kicks ass in my opinion, because it's based on real anatomy, and it's really enabling real function, because it's based on, taking animals, certain muscle groups and bones, and combining them in a way that would actually work. So that's very personally rewarding, but also it looks great, and it's like it looks great because it's functional and because it's actually pulling in real science, real anatomy, real medical information, and um, merging it in a way that would be harmonious. So that's cool. But other than that, I don't generally try to go too deep into the anatomy unless I have to. Like in this case, we know in general where certain muscle groups are. And, so yeah, no, I don't usually look up too much anatomy for certain things. And I've studied so much human anatomy, that it's rare that I feel lost with human anatomy in general, when it comes to sculpting the human form. I might again look up a little bit of reference if I'm getting into certain areas that are very specific, like the obliques can be a little hairy sometimes with how they're deformed based upon like how much you're moving your torso and your arms or whatever. Um, but yeah, there's not too much that I feel very unsure of or need to look up reference a lot for, or not reference, but anatomy reference specifically. Um, Here, do I ever use ZBrush for hard surface? Yeah, of course. What's the biggest project I've ever done? I don't know. You mean personal project or like professional project that I've worked on? The big difference there. When you're on professional projects, you're always part of a team. You're just like you're never doing anything all alone. So I was part of a couple big teams for some pretty big movies and TV shows. So in that case, you could be a key player in them, but you're still one of several people. Doing all doing serious good work. Um, but then there's also like one man army things that I've done personally that are 3D printing projects, which are insane, that most people would never attempt to do. But I just took years to do them because I'm like, screw it. I want to do this certain thing. I want to make it look great. And if it takes 2 years to finish, then however long it takes is fine. I just, didn't have a time limit on myself. I wanted to create something and finish something and make it look beautiful and impressive. Do whatever it takes until it's done. But that's having commitment that a lot of people don't have. And I did want to give up at times, but I still said, no, I love what I'm working on, so I want to finish it. Um, what do you mean how my I don't know the program is better? Better in what way? Nothing competes with ZBrush really still for sculpting. Um, and I use Maya a lot too, but for different reasons, for different things. Each program has their strengths and weaknesses, though. I mean, nothing is the one all-stop shop for anything. Oh, for hard surface, yeah, I guess I don't do a lot of hard surface though. But if I have to do hard surface, I don't mind doing it in ZBrush. Just prefer ZBrush. If I can stay in ZBrush, I'll stay in ZBrush. I just really rather. I just don't really like working in other programs as much. It's just not as enjoyable, honestly. You think also something about ZBrush is that you just feel like you're more directly affecting what you're working on, and programs like Maya, you feel more disconnected in a lot of. I do anyway. Such a disconnect and a delay between things at times, where when it comes to sculpting and like it's so much more like closer to real life when you're sculpting with clay. You're moving your hands around, you're touching something, directly affecting something. It's a different. There's a different draw and attraction to that for me than Maya. Of course, that's not again disregarding working on hard surface stuff. Where if you need something to be very technical, sterile, you know, very precise, then yeah, Maya is a good place to be. Of course, you need to be like going toward, if you're moving towards SolidWorks level of like engineering, where it's like real world engineering, then that's a different animal. Then you're just talking about totally different fields and different techniques. And again, I go into Maya for certain things like that. If I need to create something that's going to be like, I'm part of a space startup and we're doing things that have to deal with objects careening through space and Earth's atmosphere and whatever. And it's like, obviously I'm using Maya for that, because where else are you going to animate something or drop it into Unreal? You could do some. I do work on the mixture of that though. I do ZBrush for some of that, and I do bring it into Maya and do a bunch of other work in it there. And then I'll bring it into Substance Painter for texturing. So it's like, again, it's just knowing your tools that the tools that are at your disposal, and what you want to use them for. Also, like, literally getting dark in here. Let me flip on a light quick, because I got another 30 minutes to go, right? 40 minutes to go. Too right. Yeah. Right. There we go. Works. Um. Yeah, tablet's always nice. Yeah, working on Cintiq. Go Poly and Maya, take the ZBrush for detail. Yep. Yeah, that's pretty standard practice, I think. How are we looking on Instagram? We still got people coming in and out, huh? All right, cool. See the count, like body count, like if there's anybody in there right now. It looks like people joined, and then I'm sure they drop off, but I don't see a number. I don't know. Well, if anyone's on Instagram, feel free to say hi, leave a comment. You just joined on Instagram. I'm working on this dinosaur as a tribute to the original work by Phil Tippett, which is this work right here. Stop motion dinosaur. Monoclonius. Which I think means, obviously mono means one, and clonius, I guess that's Latin for horn, I think. Single horn, something like that. You can hear my pup here. 1 second, sorry. So you say you're still learning the program, know the basics, any general advanced tips? I don't know. That's such an open-ended question. And I gave some today. I don't know what other. You have to give me some more specific questions as far as what you'd like to need to know, what you're trying to do. Just looking at my reference really quick. Just switching up some stuff here. Yeah, I hear you when you're saying you're trying to do too much. I'm gonna break it down and start with ZBrush in mind. I think what you need to do, I mean, this is just my take, is you want to learn multiple programs at the same time. You have to still. I think it's better to focus on one project and go the whole way through, finish it to the end. Just ram through to the end. So whatever project you're working on in Maya, then you're transferring to ZBrush for detailing. Just go. The natural flow would be like if you're starting in Maya, build your base mesh there if you need to, dump it into ZBrush. You do your UVs in Maya too if you want. Dump it in ZBrush. Do all your details, whatever. Export out your low cage mesh and your high resolution mesh, and then reference your high res mesh in Substance Painter and bake out your basic maps there. And then create all your textures and assign your materials, your roughness, your metalness, all that stuff in Substance, and then output those maps, and then take it to wherever you want to render it. I guess if you're trying to do rendering, dump it all into Unreal or into KeyShot or Redshift. If you're going to do that rendering out of like Cinema 4D or want to render out of ZBrush, want to render out of Maya, whatever. But I think just taking a project and finishing it is important, even if it's simple or it's not your best work, your proudest moment, whatever. But just finishing, just learning to take something to completion. Again, commit. Like just commit, get it done, accomplish something, move forward. I think that's integral. I think that's basic. Honestly, I think that's just like a very basic, simple, fundamental thing to do um, to get from point A to point B. And it also will give you some encouragement, I think, as an artist to see that you are capable of completing something that you set your mind to. Um, and you'll obviously learn a lot in the process. You'll learn where you could have done better, or where you failed, or where you messed up, or where you're not happy with something, etc. But as a learning, budding, I will say younger, but not everyone's younger. But as someone who's new to the software, or even just the whole creative process, I think you're going to gain a lot from just finishing something. I think that if I'll sound like an old man at the age of 41, I think it's younger people have underestimated the value of hard work. I don't think they even understand. Some young people I don't think understand that the concept of hard work. But sorry, this is a cynic in me, but I think it's true. I think understanding the value of hard work, putting in effort, blood, sweat, tears into something, and finishing it, and that to me is almost a joke saying that with digital, because it's like you're not really bleeding. Usually, you're not sweating. You're barely sweating. You might cry over something, maybe, but really soft. No, but I think in general, I think that there's still something to be said for people learning how to physically do hard work too. Good physical hard days work is has a lot of value in it as well, and I did a lot of that in my fair share when I was younger. Um, Now, so much of my life revolves around the computer and the digital world, but I still put in hard work at the gym physically, and even when it comes to 3D printing certain projects, if they're big pieces or they're things I have to finish physically, like refine them. There's detail work, there's hand work, there's magnification that I have to use, whatever. There's something to be said about that. Having mental discipline, mental hardship, but also mental discipline, be hard mentally, um, and having strength of that, strength of the mind, I think is important too. Just like everyone loves to talk about diversity, but they don't love to talk about mental diversity. You know, diversity of the mind, thought. I think it's very important too. So anyway, it's just my 2 cents. Creates resilience, I think, too. Perseverance. When you persevere through something, you work hard, you push through, you make it to the other side, even when you're exhausted physically, mentally. Then you're crying. Maybe then you're bloodied a bit because you pushed through so hard and you've hurt yourself a little bit on the way. There's something to be said for that. I think when you're actually like working on a project and it's something that you really are passionate about or have become passionate about. Perhaps it wasn't that way in the beginning, but you grew to kind of fall in love with what you're working on or what it's turning out to be. Something to be said for that. I think that it's good to be a creator, not just a consumer. I think we're all consumers in America, especially. I mean, we all buy and consume products of one type or another. But if you're using it to create something, that's a whole other beast versus just buying stuff for pleasure and convenience. Um, I think you're kind of missing out on a little bit of life, honestly, if you've never experienced the joy of creating something with your hands, coming up with an idea, a vision for something, and not just in some cases what I'm doing, and not just doing what I'm doing, which is replicating something. I mean, I think a lot of my job has become that, which is kind of something I bemoan of it, and which is why I try to do some personal projects. But even this right now, while this is a personal interest, it's also not wholly original. Um, there is stuff I am working on that's wholly original, but it's also stuff that I don't want to share so much publicly yet because ties into films I want to make and much bigger IP and things that I'm developing. So I want to be careful how to pace that and delve, dish that out. Um, so that's just trying to be tactically intelligent when it comes to original pieces of work that I value a lot and that I know will make significant amounts of money, but given away to the wrong people could make someone else a lot of money. So I just don't want to be stupid about that. That might sound cynical, but it's also reality. Sadly, that you have a good enough idea, you don't protect it or you're not careful with it. Somebody with a lot of money and a lot of lawyers can just rip you off easily. So, and it's already happened. It's happened to some of the brands that people know and love are stolen. They are stolen from other people who are uh, not very honest. Certain movies that a lot of people know about that were not the creator of them, so to speak, that people know they're actually not the real creator of them. I won't go into too much detail because it's all hairy, but it's true. People's stuff gets stolen. So not that I'm being paranoid about it, but just trying to be smart. Just trying to be careful. Sorry, what's chat saying? Uh, Take it to finish. I was thinking that today. Learn lots that way. Yeah, I'll the end boss in 5 times. 5 times. Completed it with my perfectionist. Yeah, perfect. See it through. Yep. Yeah, paranoid ain't a bad thing. No, yeah. I mean, it's like just finding that balance. I mean, it's like obviously not everybody has the ambition or ability to do anything with certain people's property or IP, but you don't need everyone to have that ability. You just need one person be an a-hole and to run off with your idea or give it to someone else that they've paid to create something, and there you go, and you've lost years of work. So some of the stuff I've been working on I started back in 2002. So we're talking over 20 years on and off, a lot of it off, but still we're talking about 20 years of hard work and development and ideas and concepts and putting things together in a way that no one else has done, in a way that I understand how to make a product. Like movies, good stories are products. Like you have to create something that's appealing to a lot of people if you want to make any kind of money. And it's not like money is my main motivator, but obviously I would love that to be a big piece of my career and my life, my future. So again, you have to protect things that are valuable that you know other people can see value in. And that's why I'm protective of it. It's because I understand how to make things appealing and like I love the Matrix for that reason. It's a great product as a movie, but it's also highly intelligent and engaging. Wouldn't say it's that emotional, but it's very engaging and exciting, and like the first one especially, and unique. That's sort of not that it's related to the Matrix in any way or like anything like that, but I mean it's this it still has an aesthetic that's unique, beautiful, and powerful, but also intelligent and emotional, and a big adventure, like a grand, epic, exciting, it builds to a furious kinetic adventure that I know will appeal to men and women. Like it's not, it goes across the board. Um, so yeah, there's just a lot that I've put into it that I don't want to just throw out there and just let the public just see everything, or even let the wrong people see it. So when I show it to people or I show things privately or talk about it, even I have an NDA signed, no matter who it is. So yeah, so I cover my ass when I have to because I've seen people get burned for stuff that's not even as visionary or as big. So yeah, so just trying to be smart, just trying to be intelligently cautious, as I think everyone should be. It's like people underestimate how ruthless other people can be at times too. If you're not careful. It's funny. I just last night I went to see because I really just needed a break from everything, from sitting in front of the computer, from work and all that. I went to see Dumb Money last night. And it's good. It's funny. It's funny. It's a true story. It's a very recent true story, so it's kind of impressive they made it so quickly. Um, I recommend it if you want a good comedy that's a true story. For those who don't know, it's basically about Roaring Kitty, who is this guy who helped really, I guess, get Wall Street Bets kind of get its name known. For those who don't know, Wall Street Bets was a Reddit forum that really helped people rise up and make some serious money off of GameStop stock. And it was also happening during the whole crypto craze. And I got a little bit on the GameStop train, but I think it was toward the end. And so I kind of was bummed that I didn't catch on to the whole, uh, GME craze when it was happening, because I could have made some money. But I wound up making money in crypto anyway, but not, nothing that's like millions or anything like that. But I walked away with, several grand more than I spent. So it's like it still felt good to walk away with profit, as opposed to most people lose in stocks and trading and crypto than gain. So I was at least proud to say I managed it well enough to make less than 10, but more than 5 walking away from it. So hey, some money. Could have made more if I would have sold Dogecoin before Elon went on to SNL and just crashed it, which is a bummer. I was thinking, oh, we'll see a spike here, keep holding, and then it just tanked, and I was like, man. So I could have walked away with almost 20 grand, but I didn't. So I was bummed about that. Still made money, but not as much as I could have. Anyway, but go see Dumb Money if you like a good comedy and true story, and if you're at all aware or interested in finance, or have just had any kind of awareness of that craze that happened during and just after the pandemic. Good times. something you can do in ZBrush that's helpful at times like this, if I want to try to get some of the proportions right, is a very simple and quick and dirty way is to superimpose ZBrush over top of the image. So I'm going to show you here in 1 second. Yeah, a little rants about Bitcoin. Yeah, I know. I think we're all kicking ourselves for those of us who are aware of Bitcoin, but we're like, it's a fad. It's something for the nerds. Like I remember thinking that, like, nah, there's no real value in that. That's ridiculous. People are just going to lose their money. And lo and behold, it was back in 2012. I remember thinking that in 2012 and just thinking like, yeah, this is stupid. No one cares. And who was the idiot? Me. I was the fool. I should have bought in, but I didn't. I mean, I did much later, so I still made some cash, but not what I would have wanted. Not as much as I could have. So, c'est la vie. So anyway, here I am superimposing this in ZBrush using just up here. You got this slider, so you can create the transparency, edit the transparency of ZBrush, and it lets you look through and line things up here. You got to make sure your focal length is about, similar to what they could have used. So I think this probably would have actually been, I don't know, could have been 35 millimeter from a distance, or probably could have been even 100 millimeter. I don't know. But either way, and I know some of these proportions are off, like the eye is lower. Beak kind of is like, seems like the head's kind of tilted. I don't know. I don't know if they use 50 seemed almost more forgiving. It's interesting. Like the head is very like, and I'm not sure if that's because I'm guessing it's because he might have looked at skeletons and they have the head very, because they went through they were in a flood basically, most of them all, when it's ironic, people were like, I don't know about Noah's flood. I'm like, dude, everything that's fossilized has been in a flash flood. Like, what are the odds? Hello, everything is buried in a mudslide. Interesting. All around the world, same kind of thing. Interesting, huh? But these animals have their skulls are more strong front to back because when they're in combat, they're going forward with the nose with this horn. Generally, you're going to think it's like logically it makes sense for the structure to be built in a way that it's stronger in one direction than in another. Just like when you're even training in martial arts, you learn how you line up bones together. You're going to have more force and more strength and more security and safety with moving your hands in one direction and using your arms in a certain direction than in another, where it's far weaker, right? So you want to kind of have things lined up. So anyway, long story short, the head seems to be often compressed laterally from the sides, like a sandwich, and it gets flatter that way. But the animal most likely didn't have that thin of a head. It was probably much more three-dimensional. That's going more 2D when you start squishing something, from the sides. So that's where I've taken some liberty here and thought, the head's probably a little bit wider, because I've seen some other skeletons of monoclonius, and it's like, yeah, the head's, the bones aren't as crushed from the side, so it's not as flat and thin as you might think. And it kind of makes sense that there would be a little bit more dimensionality to it. So I've sort of taken that liberty here, but then I'm also kind of like tempted to kind of squish it together a little bit more too. I don't know. So I'm just going right back against what I'm saying because I don't know. Part of me is like, should I make it a little bit more faithful to the original, or should I just sort of keep going off with, it being a little bit more unique and a little bit more semi true to life? I don't know. Interesting. Sorry, what's chat saying? What's Will saying, basically? You're like the only one talking to me. Percent on Bitcoin, yeah. It's big money. Went for peanuts at the start, yeah. Who's Rodolfo? Do they have the wrong name in there too? Is someone before me named Rodolfo? Because my name's not Rodolfo. I think you guys can see on the screen, right? It says like down here, doesn't it say like my name? Daniel Enrique de Leon. Is what? Sorry, Will. Is what a personal project? This or the films that I'm working on? The films are obviously a personal project. But yeah, this is a personal project too. Something that I've wanted to make for a while and said, screw it, let's just start doing it on stream. Yeah, it's interesting. This is like raised up a lot more, and the eye would have to come up as well. And I'll just leave it like that for now. I might edit it later though. So you can go back and mess with it. But anyway, just giving you a quick demo of how we can do transparency in ZBrush to help with likenesses, alignments, that kind of thing. The personal project. That. Sorry for that. Oh, you mean the you mean the this dinosaur? Yeah, it's a personal project. What is your name? Sorry. Millie. I don't know if I have any funny stories about ZBrush. I'm not sure what you mean. Yeah, ZBrush is I don't know. I don't know that I have any really funny stories necessarily. It's like often work, you know. It's just a lot of work, a lot of time. There's cool experiences. I mean, it's like there's exciting things I've done with it. You know, 2 years ago, I was able to do a fair amount of work on Katy Perry's show in Vegas, which was pretty cool. Got to help with some design elements and modeling a lot of her stage props for her whole mushroom set and a bit of her trash set. If you haven't seen her show, you can look up some stuff on YouTube. I think her show is done. It finished a few months ago. It was her last showing. I never got to see it in person. Kind of wanted to because it would have been cool to see my work in person, but oh well. Maybe she'll do another run again in the future, perhaps, or maybe not. Who knows? But yeah, I got to work with her main guys, Ash and Ant. They're the two dudes who helped her with a lot of designs. They were the ones who gave me art direction for what they wanted on stage. But that was cool. It was all done in ZBrush, you know. Giant snail she rides out on stage, and the giant mushrooms her and a guitarist are dancing around on, all that. It was all done in ZBrush. And then handed off to, you know, guys to manufacture and build. Stageworks is a very prominent company that did a lot of that work, that manufactured it and physically, you know, created the work that was on stage that I provided the files for, which they then CNC'd and milled out, assembled, all that stuff. So yeah, I was one of many people, but I was one of the lucky key people in the very beginning of the project to build a lot of that stuff. So it was cool. Other than that, I mean, yeah, you know, I did a lot of work in uh, stuff for like Black Adam, done in ZBrush. Work that was the Spider-Man, of course, was some of it was done in ZBrush. A lot of it done in Maya. Yeah, so you know, I wouldn't say there's funny stuff necessarily, funny stories, but you know, cool stuff I got to work on, fun stuff. Grateful to be a part of it. Sorry, I'm just spending a lot of time in the orbital area and in the face. I just, I don't know. You know, they say that the eyes are the window to the soul. So I always kind of like, I'm a big eye fan in general, people and animals, but yeah, just, you know, the face is the first thing I think most people look at in general of anything. So kind of like to focus in on that when I can. Have to. Questions on Instagram now? I don't see any questions. Just checking in. Another like 10 minutes to go here. Hop off. Pup is starting to get restless out there too, so he probably has to go out soon or eat something else. Check on him again in a minute. Ceratopsians have this beautiful crests, so this elegant flow and the beautiful shapes to them. Be awesome. Like, there's nothing else like them right now either. There's nothing else alive that has this level of crazy beauty. I mean, birds kind of do, I guess, and parrots and some chameleons kind of have crests and whatever, but it's nothing like, you know what I mean? We don't have rhinos that have things like this. I mean, the rhinos run another thing that's similar with just the horn, but totally different creature, big mammal. Rhinos are awesome, though. I like rhinos a lot. Pretty cool. Kind of looks happy. Just do a little. Guys. Oh, we need our dinosaur serious. Worked on any game titles? Yeah, I have worked on a couple. But the one that's out, or no, sorry, it's not out actually. I don't know if it ever will come out, sadly. But was one I was really excited for, and I was so honored to be a part of it, even though it didn't seem to get finished. Excuse me, was this game called, it's a VR game. You can still get the demo, I think, of it, or I think it's still out there, or you can easily find it somewhere on the web. It was called Classroom Aquatic, and it was this hilarious game where you were a human exchange student in a school of dolphins, and all your peers, you were in this classroom, and all your peers are dolphins in this classroom, and you have to. It's like what do they call it? Trivia strategy, real time trivia, espionage, trivia stealth. I think trivia stealth game is what they called it. And you would have to. You have three red or like the pink rubber erasers that you all remember from school, and you have multiple choice tests. These erasers, I think you would automatically be holding a pencil in your hand, and there's a teacher that's monitoring everyone taking this test, and they're all real world questions that you would have to either be a genius to know the answers to, or happen to be an expert in one of these topics, and that's how you'd be able to answer the questions correctly. Otherwise, the way you play the game is you have to cheat. So you have to lean over and look at your dolphin peers' tests, because they're all geniuses, obviously. So they're all getting the answers perfect. But you're the human, so obviously we're slower. So you have to cheat. That's the whole game. But you have to not get caught cheating. And if you were to lean over on the student for too long, they would get angry and protective, and then they'd hunch over and squawk, like cover their tests with their flippers. And if they make too much noise, also the teacher would come over and be like, "What's going on?" You get in trouble. But you can also distract the teacher by chucking one of your erasers at different objects around the room. So you could throw it and hit like a globe or a dolphin skeleton, or even the teacher's back of the head, or the chalkboard, whatever. Hit other students with the erasers, and that distraction would enable you then to get some of the answers you need. There's like 6 or 7 pages, I guess, or 5 pages of multiple choice questions, and they would all rotate through them. So you'd eventually be able to look over and see and get all the answers, as long as you're watching out for the teacher. And so that was the whole game, really. So I modeled a bunch of stuff for the environments in that game. I 3D printed. I redesigned the dolphin for one of the original look that they had for it, and I 3D printed that as gifts for some of them. I took it around. I took the 3D print around, and I was wearing their t-shirt. I was working for them for a bit, and one of the E3s. I think it was like E3 2018, maybe, or 2017. I was promoting the game heavily and running around E3. Got to meet some of our, IGN celebrities, whatever, and took some pictures. I think it was Naomi Kyle. I got to meet Naomi, and yeah, so I was wearing the T-shirt, promoting the game, talking about it. I was really happy to be a part of it, because I saw the demo and I was like, oh my god, I have to at least pitch to these guys to offer to work on them, and I got to work on it for a little bit, but yeah, it's a bummer that eventually my work was done with them, and it was in their hands, and then they had a programmer who didn't really know what he was doing, and other people who didn't really know what they were doing, and funds got mismanaged, and blah blah blah. And so now I think the whole thing's in limbo, and I don't know. I think Remy was the guy who was pretty much left the game was left in his hands, and I'm not sure what he's done with it since then. But yeah, that was a game that was a kind of it had the potential to be a really big game, actually. A lot of people played it. I remember before he kind of got axed, PewDiePie even played it a bit. I mean, he's not axed, but you know what I mean. Like, he got blacklisted for saying dumb crap. I think a lot of it was joke and jest, but just poor taste, bad humor. And I'm of the opinion almost anything can be funny, really, but still, I think there are certain lines that are not wise to cross. Anyway, PewDiePie said some dumb stuff and got himself in trouble, and so anyway, but he played it before he got himself in trouble, and he promoted it, so that got us a lot more attention too. And that was pretty cool. It was just cool to see it. It's cool to be a part of a project that you can see kind of building momentum in real time over months. But that's already known. Like, a game is unique like that. Like movies, we often work on movies and we have to use code names and everything's clandestine, and you can't let anyone know you're working on this big movie until it's out. And so it's always different like that. But with games, it's like, you get the demo out, people know the team. It's like, oh, that's cool. It's cool to kind of see more people getting excited about it, playing the demo and talking about it and sharing it with their friends, and it's funny and it's cute and intelligent. Like, there's all these cool mixture of things in there. So it's a real bummer that it is pretty much left in the land of vaporware. I guess it may never see the light of day as a finished product, but I hope it does. I think it'd be awesome to see it completed. And I had a bunch of other creative ideas I wanted to instill with them, and do some like music licensing and some really fun things for its opening, and I was storyboarding some things for it. And so yeah, there was a lot that went into it that just hasn't got out, sadly. But who knows? But that was the main game I was working on back in I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. almost out of time. So yeah, this has been about 2 hours, and I feel like it's not a ton of progress. I mean, all the progress happened like right in here around the orbital socket and Prestish, but hey, at least it's something. So yeah, anyone watching the stream in the future on YouTube, sorry, I'm not like a speed sculptor, just going through everything as fast as I can. But I don't know. I've found also that slow and steady wins the race, and I'm always more about quality over quantity personally. So not one to try to impress by rushing through something. Because speaking of games, I think it was Miyamoto, gentleman who created Mario. He always makes it clear that if you rush a bad game out there, it's going to be just known as bad forever. But if you delay a game and people are a little upset you delayed it, but it still comes out eventually and it's gold because you delayed it, that's forever. So I always look at my sculptures that way too. I always think of just the value of what's the end product going to look like, and that's what people are going to remember. That's what we're going to see. They see the final, they see the burger, they eat the burger. They don't see the cow necessarily. They don't see how the sausage is made. They just see the end product, and so that's how I often look at what I'm working on when I have all the time in the world to work on it. Supposedly all the time in the world. Who knows? Who knows when our last day will be? But you know what I mean. Anyway, yeah, you guys are getting some insight here into just the workflow and how things go. It's coming together, and it will slowly keep coming together. And there's some other pieces that I've been working on and off for a while that I want to start streaming again for you guys. Let me save this again quick though. So actually, I'll save it later. But here's something else that I've been working on that I have further along than this, but this is his face. This is Mr. Reeves, Keanu, back when he was younger and in the Matrix. I pretty much have completed his likeness, happy with it. This is going to be a part of a much bigger sequence, but here is a test print of him. For those of you on Instagram, I think you can see it right now. There he is. Anyone who's still watching on IG, I'll show you guys here on the stream in a second. See if I can enlarge the camera. So here you go. This is a test print. Keanu. This is going to be from the lobby scene from when he triple kicks the last guy, the SWAT member. So this is just a preview, you could say, of the final print. So, some idea of what I've been up to. IG, there you go. So it's always pretty cool to actually hold something that you've made, or sculpted. So it's fun. And for those of you at the ZBrush Summit, you probably saw that there too, because I had one of those there, as well as my Quiet Place Alien and Trico from The Last Guardian. So anyway, so yeah, some other cool stuff in the oven here. There's also a Cupid and Psyche piece that I've been working on, that I was working on again at the Summit. That was really fun. So I'll probably bring that back up too, because I forgot I even had it. Let me see if I can find that for you quick, just to show everybody. That's a piece I'm proud of. That's nearly done, but not quite. Yeah, I think this is it. Just load this up for you quick. Let me see what's in the chat, because I'm going to bounce here in a second. crotch shot. Hey, stop zooming in the crotch. Let's go. Sorry. There you go. So this is another piece that I'm very proud of. It's not done, but it's getting there. So I did this back when they were really excited about the cloth simulation you can do in ZBrush. Hence, all of the billowing cloth down here from Psyche. Yet keeping her just enough covered up, but you know, going for that Greek god, Greek goddess vibe for everybody, of course, because that's what they are. Probably to add a little bit more finesse to the faces, but yeah, it's a piece that I'm happy with the way it's coming along. I think it'll be pretty beautiful and pretty epic when it's done. And it's sort of my only sequel that I've ever thought about doing, I guess you could say, to a sculpture. The original was the one I remade, which was by Antonio Canova in the Louvre, which you can still see today. And when it's not closed down, I think they'll close it down because it was getting really violent, actually, in France lately, if you don't know. The news isn't really talking about it, but that's actually true. So yeah, so the story in short is that Cupid descends into Hades, into hell, to save his love, Psyche. And that's where Sleeping Beauty, the whole kiss, waking her up from what the kiss kind of came from. So he kisses her, she wakes up from deep sleep because she went down to retrieve this vessel. It's right here. It's like it was a sleeping potion that his mother put in there and sent down and then told her to retrieve, and said, I think, if I remember correctly, she said that if she were to use this potion, that Cupid would love her forever and not be the promiscuous man whore that he is. But of course, that was a lie because his mom was they were so perverse. His mom had an incestual love for him, and so Psyche went down, opened it, and the gas from it put her to sleep, I guess, something like that. And only way she could be woken up or revived was by his kiss. It's the whole story. So, yeah, he kisses her, and that's the one sculpture I made years ago. And now this is sort of, well, what's the next step? They wouldn't be making out in hell. They'd be getting out of there first. So that's I gave him a bow instead of him just groping her like in the original piece. Also made it look like an adult, not like a teenager in the original as well. He looks like a child. So try to give it the 300 treatment, so to speak. So anyway, so yeah, this is a piece that I'm happy with the way it's been coming along, and also something I'm going to print at some point too, and it'll be a big piece, probably about 2 feet tall. Anyway, so yeah, something else to look forward to for future streams. I'll be getting back to, because this is close. You know, I think I want to enhance the feathers a lot more, add individual feathers onto it, like I did for Trico. Yeah, just really give it that extra, you know, polish, that extra punch at the end to really make it just sing and just be a really beautiful beautiful piece, original piece that's inspired by Nova's original work, which was amazing. So anyway, yep. So that's coming for Dino here and Neo. So anyway, yeah, thanks for hanging out, guys and gals. Yeah. Ah, Raz, you're from England. Cool. Nice. Well, welcome. Thanks for hanging out with me. And yeah, thanks everybody. I will see you guys maybe in another week or two. Hopefully we can have some more fun and good chats then. So, all right, ladies and gents, take care. Thank you very much. And IG, I will talk to you guys in a moment. All right.